Respiratory Protection Program. Purpose. This written respiratory protection program for Plaas Incorporated has been established in accordance with the respiratory protection requirements of OSHA Standard 29 CFR 1910.134 and ANSI Standard Z88.2/1980. Both OSHA and ANSI require implementation of feasible engineering controls and/or work practice controls as the primary means of maintaining exposure within permissible limits. This respiratory protection procedure provides standards for the selection based on the hazards to which the employee is exposed, proper use and limitations, cleaning and disinfecting, storage, inspection, appropriate surveillance of work area and conditions, regular inspection, and evaluation. These elements will be used to protect the life and health of employees when working in oxygen deficient or contaminated atmospheres. This program covers all Plaas Incorporated employees using any type of respiratory protection, including but not limited to maintenance-free disposable dust fume mist masks, such as used for concrete cutting or welding operations, air purifying cartridge respirators, such as used in petroleum vapors, organic vapors, and supplied air respirators, self-containing breathing apparatus, SCUBA, such as may be used for immediately dangerous to life and health environments, IDLH. Employees shall review a copy of the program. Copies of this program may be obtained from the Manager of Safety in the corporate office and within each foreman's manual. The Manager of Safety has full authority to make the necessary decisions to ensure the success of the program. This authority includes decisions for the selection and purchasing of the respiratory equipment and determination of proper respiratory procedures. Periodic spot checks will be made to ensure compliance with established guidelines, procedures, and applicable regulations. It is the responsibility of the Manager of Safety to implement the requirements of this program and ensure that foremen and employees follow policies. General, it is in the Respiratory Protection Program, hazard assessment and selection of proprietary respiratory PPE is conducted in the same manner as for other types of PPE. In the control of those occupational diseases caused by breathing air contaminated with harmful dust, fogs, fumes, mists, gases, smoke sprays, or vapors, the primary objective shall be to prevent atmospheric contamination. This shall be accomplished as far as feasible by accepted engineering control measures, for example, enclosure or confinement of the operation, general or local ventilation, and substitution of less toxic materials. When effective engineering controls are not feasible or when they are being instituted, appropriate respirators shall be used. Reference OSHA Standards Respiratory Protection 29 CFR 1910.134. Responsibilities. The Program Administrator. The Program Administrator for 2014 is Andrew Boster, Safety Manager. This person is responsible for issuing and administering this program and making sure that the program satisfies the requirements of applicable federal, state, or local respiratory protect requirements, providing initial and periodic training to employees on respiratory protection, including the selection, use, cleaning, inspecting, and storage of respirators, maintaining the training records of all employees included in the training sessions, conducting hazard assessments where respiratory hazards may be present, assisting the respiratory protection program to ensure its continued effectiveness, coordinating annual medical examinations as necessary, and maintaining associated records. Purchasing agent. This person is responsible for purchasing respiratory protection equipment, assuring that all respirators purchased are NIOSH certified, managers and foremen with employees required to wear respiratory protection. These people are responsible for knowing the hazards in their area that require respiratory protection, knowing the types of respirators that need to be used, enforcing the wearing of respirators when needed, making sure employees are knowledgeable about the respiratory requirements for the areas in which they work, providing training on hazardous chemicals to employees who are new to the department, reporting unknown or new exposure situations or deficiencies of respiratory equipment to the Manager of Safety. Employees who are required to wear respiratory protection. These people are responsible for wearing appropriate respiratory protection, properly maintaining their respiratory protection equipment and keeping it clean in an operable condition, reporting any problems associated with the use of respirators and new conditions that may require investigation, conducting self-fit tests of their respirators each time a respirator is worn. Voluntary use of respirators is prohibited. OSHA requires that voluntary use of respirators, when not required by the company, must be controlled as strictly as under required circumstances. To prevent violations of the respiratory protection standard, employees of Plaas Incorporated are not allowed voluntary use of their own or company-supplied respirators of any type. Exception: Employees whose only use of respirators involves the voluntary use of filtering, non-sealing face pieces, dust masks. It is a policy of Plaas Incorporated that all respirators, training, and medical surveillance will be provided to the employees at no cost. Program evaluation. Evaluations of the program are necessary to ensure that the written respiratory protection program is being properly implemented. It includes consulting with employees to ensure that they are using the respirators properly. Evaluations shall be conducted as necessary to ensure that provisions of the current written program are being effectively implemented. Program evaluation will include discussions with employees required to wear respirators in order to assess their views on the program's effectiveness and to identify any problems. Any problems that are identified during this assessment shall be corrected. Factors to be assessed include, but are not limited to, respirator fit, including the ability to use the respirator without interfering with effective workplace performance, appropriate respirator selection for the hazards to which the employee is exposed, proper respirator use under the workplace conditions and the employee encounters, and proper respirator maintenance. Training and information. Effective training for employees who are required to use respirators is essential. The training must be comprehensive, understandable, and recur annually, and more often if necessary. Training shall be provided prior to requiring the employee to use a respirator in the workplace. The training shall ensure that each employee can demonstrate knowledge of at least the following: why the respirator is necessary, and how improper fit, usage, and maintenance can compromise the protective effect of the respirator. Limitations and capabilities of the respirator. How to use the respirator effectively in emergency situations, including situations in which the respirator malfunctions. How to inspect, put on, remove, use, and check the seals of the respirator. What the procedures are for maintenance and storage of the respirator. How to recognize medical signs and symptoms that may limit or prevent the effective use of respirators. The general requirements of this program. Retraining shall be conducted annually, and when changes in the workplace or the type of respirator render previous training obsolete, inadequacies in the employee's knowledge or use of the respirator indicate that the employee has not retained the requisite understanding or skill. Other situations arise in which training appears necessary to ensure safe respirator use. Training is divided into the following sections: classroom instruction, overview of the company respirator protection program and OSHA standard, respiratory protection safety procedures, respirator selection. Respirator operation and use. Why the respirator is necessary. How improper fit, usage, or maintenance can compromise the protective effect. Limitations and capabilities of the respirator. How to use the respirator effectively in emergency situations, including respirator malfunctions. How to inspect, put on, and remove, use, and check the seals of the respirator. What the procedures are for maintenance and storage of the respirator. How to recognize medical signs and symptoms that may limit or prevent the effective use of respirators. Change-out schedule and procedure for air purifying respirators. Hands-on respirator training includes respirator inspection, respirator cleaning and sanitizing, record keeping, respirator storage, respirator fit and check and test, emergencies. Basic respiratory protection safety procedures. Only authorized and trained employees may use respirators. Those employees may use only the respirator they have been trained on and properly fitted to use. Only physically qualified employees may be trained and authorized to use respirators. A pre-authorization and annual certification by a qualified physician will be required and maintained. Any changes in an employee's health or physical characteristics will be reported to the safety manager and will be evaluated by a qualified physician. Only the proper prescribed respirator may be used for the job or work environment. Air cleansing respirators may be worn in work environments when oxygen levels are between 19.5% to 23.5%, and when the appropriate air cleaning canister, as determined by the manufacturer and approved by NIOSH and MESA for the known hazardous substance, is used. Scubas will be worn in oxygen deficient and oxygen rich environments, which is below 19.5% or above 23.5% oxygen. Employees working in environments where a sudden release of hazardous substance is likely to occur will wear an appropriate respirator for that hazardous substance. Only scubas will be used in oxygen-deficient environments, in environments with an unknown hazardous substance or unknown quantity of a known hazardous substance, or in any environment that is determined immediately dangerous to life or health, IDLH. Employees with individual respirators will be responsible for the sanitation, proper storage, and security of their respirator. Respirators damaged by normal wear will be repaired or replaced by the company when returned. The last employee using a respirator that is available for general use will be responsible for the proper storage and sanitation. All respirators will be inspected after each use and on a monthly basis. All respirators will be located in a clean, convenient, and sanitary location. In the event that employees must enter a confined space, work in an environment with hazardous substances dangerous to life or health, a scuba is required in this environment, and or conduct a hazmat entry, a buddy system will be used. A safety watchman will with constant voice, visual, or signal line communication must be used. Employees will follow the established emergency response program and or confined space entry program when applicable. Management will establish and maintain surveillance of job and workplace conditions and degree of employee exposure or stress to maintain the proper procedures and to provide the necessary respiratory protective equipment. Respirator user policies. Adherence to the following guidelines will help ensure the proper and safe use of respiratory equipment. Wear only the respirators you've been instructed to use. For example, do not wear a self-containing breathing apparatus if you've been assigned and fitted for a half-mask respirator. Wear the correct respirator for the particular hazard. For example, some situations such as chemical spills or other emergencies may require a higher level of protection than your respirator can handle. Also, the proper cartridge must be matched to the hazard. A cartridge designed for dust and mist will not provide protection for chemical vapors. Check the respirator for a good fit before each use. Positive and negative fit checks should be conducted. Check the respirator for deterioration before and after use. Do not use a defective respirator. Recognize indications that cartridges and canisters are at the end of service. If in doubt, change the cartridges or canisters before using the respirator. Practice moving and working while wearing the respirator so that you can get used to it. Clean the respirator after each use, thoroughly dry and placing the cleaned respirator in a sealable plastic bag. Store respirators carefully in a protected location away from excessive heat and light and chemicals. Selection of respirators. Due to the fact that Plaas Incorporated sites are so varied, the site foreman, in conjunction with the site client's representative, will identify what site operations may expose the employee to airborne contaminants. If airborne contaminants exist in the breathing zone, the site foreman will provide the appropriate respirator to all exposed employees. Air monitoring will be performed by the client, Plaas Incorporated, and any other qualified person with air monitoring instrumentation on site. The results of any site monitoring will be provided to the site employees. A major concern for construction workers is exposure to respirable crystalline silica dust during construction activities. Silicosis, a scarring and hardening of lung tissue, can result when particles of crystalline silica are inhaled and become embedded in the lung. The disease can be progressively debilitating and fatal. Employees of Plaas Incorporated have the potential of being exposed to silica when using rock-containing silica or concrete and masonry products that contain silica sand, when performing such tasks as chipping, hammering, drilling, crushing, or handling rock, performing abrasive blasting and sawing, hammering, drilling, or sweeping concrete or masonry. Even materials containing small amounts of crystalline silica may be hazardous if they are used in ways that produce high dust concentrations. Therefore, it is extremely important for employees to use adequate respiratory protection when source controls cannot keep silica exposures below the NIOSH recommended exposure limit, REL. Plaas Incorporated has identified the general job working conditions that may expose employees to silica and other respiratory hazards. Respirators have been chosen by evaluating the type of hazards employees are exposed to. A respiratory protection table and a table containing recommended respiratory protection for workers exposed to silica have been included on the next page and should be provided to each authorized and trained employee. Table 1 provides the following information: job working conditions requiring respirators, work location, hazards present, type of respirator or scuba required, type of filter, canister required, location of respirator, filter or cartridge change-out schedule. Again, due to variation in construction site and activities, additional working conditions may be identified at specific sites. If air contaminants exist in a breathing zone, the site foreman will provide appropriate respirators to all exposed employees. Any employee who fails to wear a respirator when required or to follow the procedures outlined in this book will face disciplinary action in accordance with those listed in the Plaas Incorporated Company Handbook. The information in the following table will be reviewed and updated at least annually and whenever any changes are made in the work environments, machinery, equipment, or processes. Table 1. The following table lists minimum respiratory equipment required to meet NIOSH NIOSH REL for crystalline silica under given conditions. Workers should wear the most protective respirator that is feasible and consistent with the task being performed. Selection of respirators continued. All abrasive blasting operators shall wear abrasive blasting respirators. When working inside of blast cleaning rooms or when using silica sand in manual blasting operations where the nozzle and blast are not physically separated from the operator in an exhaust ventilated enclosure, or where concentrations of toxic dust dispersed by the abrasive blasting may exceed the limits set in 1910.1000 Appendix A, and the nozzle and blast are not physically separated from the operator in an exhaust ventilated enclosure. Particulate filter respirators, commonly referred to as dust filter respirators, properly fitted may be used for short, intermittent, or occasional dust exposure, such as cleanup, dumping of dust collectors, or unloading shipments of sand at a receiving point where it is not feasible to control the dust by enclosure, exhaust, ventilation, or other means. Respirators used shall be approved for protection against a specific type of dust encounter. Dust filter respirators may be used to protect the operator of outside abrasive blasting operations where non-silica abrasives are used on materials having low toxicities. Plaas Incorporated will supply 3M 6X00 half mask respirators with P100 particulate filters for this purpose. Dust filter respirators shall not be used for continuous protection where silica sand is used as the blasting abrasive or toxic materials are blasted. See Table 2. Filter classifications. These classifications are marked on the filter or filter package. N series, not oil resistant, approved for non-oil particulate contaminants. Examples, dust, fumes, mist, not containing oil. R series, oil resistance, approved for all particulate contaminants including those containing oil. Examples, dust, mist, fumes, time restriction of 8 hours when oils are present. P series, oil proof, approved for all particular contaminants including those containing oil. Examples, dust, fumes, mist. See manufacturer's time use restrictions on packaging. Respirators for IDLH atmosphere. The following respirators should be used in IDLH atmospheres. A full-face pressure demand scuba certified by NIOSH for a minimum service life of 30 minutes, or a combination full-face piece pressure demand supplied air respirator SAR with auxiliary self-contained air supply. Respirators provided only for escape from IDLH atmospheres shall be NIOSH certified for escape from the atmosphere in which they will be used. Respirators for atmospheres that are not IDLH. The respirator selected shall be adequate to protect the health of the employee and to ensure compliance with all other OSHA statutory and regulatory requirements under routine and reasonably foreseeable emergency situations. The respirator selected shall be appropriate for the chemical state and physical form of the contaminant. Identification of filters and cartridges. All filters and cartridges shall be labeled and color-coded with the NIOSH appropriate label. The label should not be removed and should remain legible. Respirator filter and canister replacement. An important part of the respiratory protection program includes identifying the useful life of canisters and filters used on air purifying respirators. Each filter and canister shall be equipped with an end of service life indicator ESLI certified by NIOSH for contaminant. Or, if there is a no ESLI appropriate for conditions, a change schedule for canisters and cartridges that is based on objective information or data will ensure that canisters and cartridges are changed before the end of their service life. Affected employees will be provided with new 3M 8212 respirators every day or more often if they are becoming visibly contaminated or dirty. Those employees participating in directional drilling, sandblasting, or working with asphalt will be issued the appropriate 3M respirator or filter as listed in Table 1. Each employee is responsible for maintaining and inspecting their own respirator. Filter and cartridge change schedule. A stock of spare respirators shall be maintained by the site foreman to allow immediate change when required. If respirators with cartridges are used, they shall be changed based on the most limiting factor below. Prior to expiration date, manufacturer's recommendations for use and environment, after each use, when requested by employee, when contaminate odor is detected, when restriction to airflow has occurred as evidenced by increased effort by user to breathe normally. Cartridges shall remain in their original sealed packages until needed for immediate use. Filters should be changed based on the most limiting factor below. Prior to expiration date, manufacturer's recommendations for the specific use and environment. when requested by employee, when contaminant odor is detected, when restriction to airflow is occurred as evidenced by increased effort by user to breathe normally, when discoloring of the filter media is evident. Filters shall remain in their original sealed package until needed for immediate use. Medical evaluation. Using a respirator may place a physiological burden on employees, which can vary with the type of respirator worn, the job and workplace conditions in which the respirator is used, and the medical status of the employee. Plaas Incorporated will provide a medical evaluation at no cost to the employee to determine the employee's ability to use a respirator. This evaluation will be conducted before the employee is fit tested or required to use a respirator in the workplace. Medical evaluation procedure. A medical evaluation can be done by giving an employee a medical examination or by allowing the employee to fill out a respiratory medical evaluation questionnaire. A primary licensed healthcare provider must then evaluate the questionnaire. The medical evaluation will take place during normal working hours and will be kept confidential. The medical questionnaire and examination shall be administered confidentially during the employee's normal working hours or at a time or place convenient to that employee. The medical questionnaire shall be administered in a manner that ensures that the employee understands its content. The company shall provide the employees with an opportunity to discuss the questionnaire and examination results with the primary licensed healthcare provider. Supplemental information. The following information must be provided to the licensed healthcare provider before he or she makes a recommendation concerning an employee's ability to use a respirator. The type and weight of the respirator to be used by the employee. The duration and frequency of respirator use, including use for rescue and escape. The expected physical work effort. Additional protective clothing and equipment to be worn. Temperature and humidity extremes that may be encountered. Any supplemental information provided previously to the physician regarding an employee need not be provided for a subsequent medical evaluation if the information and the physician remain the same. The company will provide the evaluating provider with a copy of the Written Respiratory Protection Program and a copy of the OSHA Standard 1910.134. Medical determination. In determining the employee's ability to use a respirator, Plaas Incorporated shall obtain a written recommendation regarding the employee's ability to use the respirator from the primary licensed healthcare provider. The written recommendation shall provide only the following information. Any limitations on respirator use related to the medical condition of the employee or relating to the workplace conditions in which the respirator will be used, including whether or not the employee is medically able to use the respirator. The need, if any, for follow-up medical evaluations. A statement that the physician has provided the employee with a copy of the physician's written recommendation. If the respirator is a negative pressure respirator and the physician finds a medical condition that may place the employee's health at increased risk if the respirator is used, the company shall provide an APR if the physician's medical evaluation finds that the employee can use such a respirator. If the subsequent medical evaluation finds that the employee is medically able to use a negative pressure respirator, then the company is no longer required to provide an APR. Follow-up medical examination. The company shall ensure that a follow-up medical examination is provided for an employee who gives a positive response to any question among questions in Part B of the questionnaire or whose initial medical examination demonstrates a need for follow-up medical examination. The follow-up medical examination shall include any medical tests, consultations, or diagnostic procedures that the physician deems necessary to make a final determination. Additional medical evaluations. At a minimum, Plaas Incorporated will provide additional medical evaluations that comply with the requirements of this section if an employee reports medical signs or symptoms that are related to ability to use a respirator. A physician foreman or one of the program administrators informs the company that an employee needs to be reevaluated. Information from the Respiratory Protection Program, including observations made during fit testing and program evaluation, indicates a need for employee reevaluation. A change occurs in the workplace conditions, example, physical work effort, protective clothing, and temperature that may result in a substantial increase in the physiological burden placed on an employee. Respirator fit testing. Before an employee is required to use any respirator with a negative or positive pressure tight-fitting facepiece, the employee must be fit tested with the same make, model, style, and size of respirator that will be used. Plaas Incorporated will ensure that an employee using a tight-fitting facepiece respirator is fit tested prior to initial use of the respirator. Whenever a different fit respirator facepiece, size, style, model, or make is used, and at least annually thereafter, the company has established a record of the qualitative and quantitative fit tests administered to employees, including name and identification of the employee tested, type and fit test performed, specific make, model, style, size of respirator tested, data test, pass-fail results for qualitative fit test, or the fit factor and strip chart recording, other recording of the test results for quantitative fit test. Additional fit tests will be conducted whenever the employee, the company, the physician, the foreman, or the program administrators make visual observations of changes in the employee's physical condition that could affect respirator fit. Such conditions include, but are not limited to, facial scarring, dental changes, cosmetic surgery, or an obvious change in body weight. After passing a fit test, the employee notifies any of the people listed above that the fit of the respirator is unacceptable, the employee shall be given a reasonable opportunity to select a different respirator facepiece and to be retested. Types of fit test. The fit test shall be administered using an OSHA-accepted qualitative fit test QLFT or quantitative fit test QNFT protocol. The OSHA-accepted QLFT and QNFT protocols and procedures are contained in Appendix A of OSHA Standard 1910.134. QLFT may be used only to fit negative pressure air purifying respirators that must achieve a fit factor of 100 or less. If the fit factor as determined through an OSHA-accepted QNFT protocol is equal to greater than 100 for tight-fitting half-face pieces, or equal or greater to 500 for tight-fitting full-face pieces, the QNFT has been passed with that respirator. Note, if a particular OSHA standard requires the use of a full face piece air purifying respirator capable of providing protection in concentrations of up to 50 times PEL, the respirator must be quantitatively fit tested. Fit testing of tight-fitting atmosphere supplying respirators and tight-fitting powered air purifying respirators shall be accomplished by performing quantitative or qualitative fit testing in a negative pressure mode, regardless of the mode of operation, negative or positive pressure, that is used for respiratory protection. Qualitative fit testing of these respirators shall be accomplished by temporarily converting the respirator's user's actual facepiece into negative pressure respirator with appropriate filters, or by using an identical negative pressure air purifying respirator facepiece with the same sealing surfaces as a surrogate for the atmosphere supplying or powered air purifying respirator facepiece. Quantitative fit testing of these respirators shall be accomplished by modifying the facepiece to allow sampling inside the facepiece in the breathing zone of the user midway between the nose and the mouth. This requirement shall be accomplished by installing a permanent sampling probe onto a surrogate facepiece or by using a sampling adapter designed to temporarily provide a means of sampling air from inside the facepiece. Any modifications to the respirator facepiece for fit testing shall be completely removed and the facepiece restored to NIOSH approved configuration before that facepiece can be used in the workplace. Fit test records shall be maintained for respirators until the fit test is administered. Written materials required to be retained shall be made available upon request to the affected employees. Respirator operation and use. Respirator users will be required to follow the respiratory protection safety procedure established in this program. The operations and use manual supplied by the manufacturer for each type of respirator will be maintained by the program administrators and be made available to all qualified users. Each time an employee dons a respirator, a positive and negative fit check should be performed to ensure proper fit. These can be completed as follows. Positive pressure check. Close the exhalation valves and exhale gently into the facepiece. This should build a slight positive pressure inside the facepiece without any air leaking out the seal. Negative pressure check. Close the inhalation valves and inhale gently. The facepiece should collapse against the employee's face. Hold breath for 10 seconds. The facepiece should stay collapsed with no air leaks. The site foreman will conduct surveillance of the work area conditions and the degree into which employee exposure or stress. When there is a change in work area conditions or the degree of employee exposure or stress that may affect respirator effectiveness, Plaas Incorporated will reevaluate the continued effectiveness of the respirator. For continued protection of respirator users, the following general user rules apply. Users shall not remove respirators while in a hazardous environment. Respirators are to be stored in sealed containers out of harmful atmospheres. Store respirators away from heat and moisture. Store respirators such that the sealing area does not become distorted or warped. Store respirators such that the facepiece is protected. Facial hair policy. Testing and research has shown that excessive facial hair prevents a good seal from forming between the skin and respirator sealing surface. It is a policy of Plaas Incorporated that employees required to use a respirator must be clean-shaven and have no hair in the facial areas where a specific respirator must seal. Properly trimmed and groomed mustache is acceptable. However, beards, extended sideburns, and goatees are unacceptable. This policy does not apply to employees who use a helmet or hood-type respirator where a tight face seal is not required. In addition, any other condition that interferes with the face-to-face piece seal or valve function will not be allowed. If an employee wears corrective glasses or goggles or other personal protective equipment, the company shall ensure that such equipment is worn in a manner that does not interfere with the seal of the face piece to the face of the user. Continuing effectiveness of respirators. The company shall ensure that employees leave an area requiring respirator use under the following situations: to wash their faces in respirator face pieces as necessary to prevent eye or skin irritation associated with respirator use. If they detect vapor or gas breakthrough, changes in breathing resistance, or leakage in the face piece, to replace the respirator or the filter, cartridge, or canister elements. If an employee detects vapor or gas breakthrough, changes in breathing resistance, or leakage in the face piece, Plaas Incorporated will replace or repair the respirator before allowing the employee to return to the work area. Procedures for IDLH atmospheres. It is a policy of Plaas Incorporated that if an IDLH breathing zone environment exists or may exist, then the work operation should be stopped and engineering controls put in place to reduce the contaminants to a safe level. SAR and scuba usage is not encouraged, and therefore, if a potentially IDLH site condition cannot be reduced to safe levels or eliminated, then the work should be stopped and the manager of safety should be contacted before work resumes. For all IDLH atmospheres, the following emergency guidelines should be followed. One employee, or when needed more than one employee, is located outside the IDLH atmosphere. Visual, voice, or signal line communication is maintained between the employees in the IDLH atmosphere and the employees located outside the IDLH atmosphere. The employees located outside the IDLH atmosphere are trained and equipped to provide effective emergency rescue. The safety manager is notified before the employee is located outside the IDLH atmosphere enter the IDLH atmosphere to provide emergency rescue. The safety manager, once notified, provides necessary assistance appropriate to the situation. Employers located outside the IDLH atmosphere will be equipped with pressure demand or other positive pressure scubas, or a pressure demand or other positive pressure supplied air respirator with auxiliary scuba, and either appropriate retrieval equipment for removing employees who enter these hazardous atmospheres, where retrieval equipment would contribute to the rescue of the employees and would not increase the overall risk resulting from entry, or equivalent means for rescue where retrieval equipment is not required. Supplied air respirators, SAR, provides positive pressure breathing air from a remote air cylinder via hose to the face piece. SARs allow longer working times that reduce stress levels. They also serve as a long-duration work device and as an escape device. An SAR permits the wearer to work and move freely within the limits of the approved hose length. At the present time, Plaas Incorporated employees will immediately leave any IDLH atmosphere and will not be required to wear SARs. As a general information, the limitations of SARs are as follows. Air supply must be independent of ambient air. Maximum hose length is 300 feet. Hose may become entangled or cut by equipment or machinery. Maximum inlet pressure is 125 psig with normal operating pressure between 60 and 80 psig. Breathing air must be at least ASTM grade D. Cleaning and disinfecting. Plaas Incorporated will provide each respirator user with a respirator that is clean, sanitary, and in good working order. Cleaning and storing respirators is the responsibility of each employee assigned a respirator. Respirators should be cleaned and disinfected using the following procedures. Before leaving the work area, each user must wipe down the respirator with a wet cloth to remove any contaminants which may have settled on the equipment. Respirator facepiece should be washed with detergent in warm water temperature not to exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit and scrubbed using a soft brush. If possible, detergents containing a bactericide should be used. Organic solvents should not be used as they deteriorate the rubber facepiece. If bactericide detergent is not available, the detergent wash should be followed with a disinfecting rinse. Two types of disinfectant may be made from readily available household solution. A hypochlorite solution, 50 ppm, can be made by adding 5 tablespoons or 50 milliliters of chlorine bleach to a 2.5 gallons of water. An aqueous solution of iodine, 50 ppm, can be made by adding 2½ teaspoons, 6.25 milliliters, tincture of iodine to 2.5 gallons of water. A 2-minute immersion of the respirator into either solution would be sufficient for disinfecting. It should be noted that a Zephyrian chloride solution can be used along with gauze pads as a convenient spot disinfectant. Respiratory equipment shall be thoroughly rinsed in warm water, 120 degrees maximum, to remove all traces of detergent, cleaner, sanitizer, and disinfectant. It is very important that all proper rinsing take place in order to prevent dermatitis. Respiratory equipment shall be allowed to air dry on a clean surface or hung from a horizontal wire. Respirators shall be cleaned and disinfected when respirators issued for the exclusive use of employees shall be cleaned and disinfected as often as necessary to be maintained in a sanitary condition. Respirators issued to more than one employee shall be cleaned and disinfected before being worn by different individuals. Respirators maintained for emergency use shall be cleaned and disinfected after each use. Respirators used in fit testing and training shall be cleaned and disinfected after each use. Respirator inspection. All respirators shall be inspected after each use and at least monthly. Should any defects be noted, the respirator will be taken into the program administrator. Damaged respirators will be either repaired or replaced. Respirators shall be inspected as follows. All respirators used in routine situations shall be inspected before each use and during cleaning. All respirators maintained for use in emergency situations shall be inspected at least monthly and in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations and shall be checked for proper function before and after each use. Emergency escape-only respirators shall be inspected before being carried into the workplace for use. Respirator inspection should include the primary defects to look for the inspection of respirators and corrective actions to take are itemized below. Single-use disposable respirators, holes, proper elasticity of straps, condition of the metal nose clip. Air purifying respirators, quarter mask, half mask, and full face piece. A. Rubber face piece. Check for excessive dirt. Clean all dirt from the face piece. Cracks, tears, or holes. Obtain a new face piece. Distortion. Allow face piece to sit free from any constraints and see if distortion appears. If not, obtain a new face piece. And cracked, scratched, or loose-fitting lenses. Contact respirator manufacturer to see if replacement is possible. Otherwise, obtain a new face piece. B. Head straps. Check for breaks or tears. Replace head straps. Loss of elasticity. Replace head straps. Broken or malfunctioning buckles or attachments. Obtain new buckles. And allow the face piece to slip. Replace head strap. Inhalation valve, exhalation valve. Check for detergent residue, dust particles, or dirt on valve or valve seat. Clean residue with soap and water. Cracks, tears, or distortion in the valve material or valve seat. Contact manufacturer for instructions. And missing or defective valve cover. Obtain valve cover from manufacturer. Make sure the gaskets are properly seated. Filter elements. Check for proper filter for the hazard, approval designation, missing or worn gaskets. Contact manufacturer for the replacement. Worn threads, both filter threads and face piece threads. Replace filter or face piece, whichever is applicable. Cracks or dents in filter should be replaced by manufacturer. Atmosphere supplying respirators. Check face piece, head straps, valves, and breathing tube as for air purifying respirators. Hood, helmet, blouse, or full suit if applicable. Check for headgear suspension. Adjust properly for you. Cracks or beads in face shield. Replace face shield and protective screen to see that it is intact and fits correctly over the face shield. Abrasive blasting and blouses. Obtain new screen. Air supply stream. Check for breathing air quality. Breaks or kinks in air supply hoses and fitting attachments. Replace hose and or fitting. Tightness of connections. Proper setting of regulators and valves. Consult manufacturer's recommendations. Correct operation of air purifying elements and carbon monoxide or high temperature alarms. Additional requirements for emergency use respirators. Certify the respirator by documenting the date of inspection was performed, the name or signature of the person who made the inspection, the findings required remedial action, and a serial number or other means of identifying the inspected respirator. Provide this information on a tag or label that is attached to the storage compartment for the respirators, kept with the respirator, or is included in inspection reports, stored as paper or electronic files. This information shall be maintained until replaced following a subsequent certification. Respirator storage. Respirators are to be stored as follows. All respirators shall be stored to protect them from damage, contamination, dust, sunlight, extreme temperatures, excessive moisture, and damaging chemicals. And they shall be packed or stored to prevent deformation of the facepiece and exhalation valve. Emergency respirators shall be kept accessible to the work area, stored in compartments or in covers that are clearly marked as containing emergency respirators and stored in accordance with any applicable manufacturer instructions. Repair of respirators. Respirators that fail an inspection or are otherwise found to be defective will be removed from service to be discarded, repaired, or adjusted in accordance with the following procedures. Repairs or adjustments to respirators are to be made only in the persons appropriately trained to perform such operations, and shall use only the respirator manufacturer's NIOSH approved parts designed for the respirator. Repairs shall be made according to the manufacturer's recommendations and specifications for the type and extent of repairs to be performed, and reducing and admission valves, regulators, and alarms shall be adjusted or repaired only by the manufacturer or a technician trained by a manufacturer. Breathing air quality and use. Should it become necessary for an employee to wear a scuba or SAR in an emergency situation, Plaas Incorporated will ensure that compressed air, compressed oxygen, liquid air, and liquid oxygen used for respiration accords with the following specifications. Compressed and liquid oxygen shall meet the United States pharmacopoeia requirements for medical or breathing oxygen, and compressed breathing air shall meet at least the requirements for grade D breathing air described in ANSI Compressed Gas Associated Commodity Specification for Air G71.1989 to include oxygen content VV of 19.5 to 23.5%, hydrocarbon condensed content of 5 milligrams per cubic meter of air or less, carbon monoxide CO content of 10 ppm or less, carbon dioxide content of 100 ppm or less, and lack of noticeable odor. Compressed oxygen will not be used in atmosphere supplying respirators that have previously used compressed air. Oxygen concentrations greater than 23.5% are used only in equipment designed for oxygen service or distribution. Cylinders used to supply breathing air to respirators meet the following requirements. Cylinders are tested and maintained as prescribed in the shipping container specification regulations of the Department of Transportation, 49 CFR Part 173 and Part 178. Cylinders of purchased breathing air have a certificate of analysis from the supplier that a breathing air meets the requirements for grade D breathing air. Moisture content in breathing air cylinders does not exceed a dew point of minus 50 degrees F, minus 45.6 degrees Celsius at 1 atmosphere pressure. Breathing air couplings are incompatible with outlets for non-respirable worksite air or other gas systems. No asphyxiating substance shall be introduced into the breathing air lines. Breathing gas containers shall be marked in accordance with NIOSH Respiratory Certification Standard, 42 CFR Part 84. Monitoring. The program administrators and foremen will monitor respirator use at Plaas Incorporated work sites. These people will conduct random inspections to ensure that respirators are being used, that the respirator in use is appropriate for the work conditions, and the respirators are being worn properly and are in good working condition. Program evaluation. This respirator program shall be evaluated at least annually to determine the overall effectiveness of the program in assuring the proper selection and use of respiratory protective equipment. Compliance with the aforementioned points of this program will be reviewed, and where deficiencies are noted, appropriate action shall be taken to correct them. Special attention will be given to the proper record keeping, which includes training, fit testing, and medical records. Program function shall be divided into an administrative review and an operational review. Administrative review. The administrative review shall ensure that the following points are addressed at a minimum. The responsibility for the program functioning shall be vested in one individual who is knowledgeable and who can coordinate all aspects of the program. B, an ongoing effort is being made to alleviate the respiratory hazard through the use of engineering controls. A status report of such efforts shall be made annually. C, a written procedure exists which address the various aspects of the program. Operational review. The operational review shall ensure that the following points are addressed at a minimum. Workplace monitoring and initial determination of hazards is still current and accurate. Selection of respiratory equipment is still accurate and appropriate. Medical screening of respirator users is ongoing and adequate according to competent medical authority. Proper fitting and assignment of respirators is taking place, including record keeping. Provisions for cleaning, inspecting, maintaining, and storing of respirators has been and continue to be available in accordance with NIOSH recommendations. Employees will be asked about fit selection, use, maintenance, etc. Respirator training is being conducted at least annually and covers all aspects of such a program as recommended by NIOSH. Special use conditions are addressed in the written procedures and training program. Record keeping. The safety manager will retain written information regarding medical evaluations, fit testing, and the respirator program. This information will facilitate employee involvement in the respirator program, assist Plaas Incorporated in auditing the adequacy of the program, and provide a record for compliance determinations by OSHA. Records pertaining to the respiratory written program will be retained at the corporate office and made available in accordance with 29 CFR 1910.1020. Respiratory protection learning exercise. True or false? Number 1, you are responsible for your respiratory protection. True. True or false? Number 2, the lungs can tell the difference between clean air and contaminated air. That's false. Lungs take in air whether it's contaminated or not. Number 3, true or false? The two major types of respiratory hazards are oxygen deficiency and contamination. That's true. Number 4, true or false? Engineering controls can provide 100% protection against respiratory hazards. That's false. In many situations, engineering controls aren't sufficient to remove all contaminants. In these situations, administrative controls and respirators may be needed. Number 5, true or false? Air purifying respirators protect against oxygen deficiency. Air purifying respirators only purify air. They do not supply it. In oxygen-deficient atmospheres, air-supplied respirators must be used. Number 6, true or false? Filters or chemical cartridges can be combined to protect against multiple respiratory atmospheres. True. 7, true or false? Air-supplied respirators supply uncontaminated breathing air from the surrounding atmosphere. That's false. Air-supplied respirators provide uncontaminated air from a source other than the surrounding atmosphere. True or false? Number 8, demand airflow. Number 8, true or false? Demand airflow respirators supply air only when the user inhales. That's true. Number 9, true or false? Scuba respirators can be used in IDLH atmospheres. That's true. Number 10, true or false? Tested and approved respirators can be identified by the letters NIOSH, MSHA on the facepiece. That's false. Tested and approved respirators can be identified number preceded by the prefix TC for tested and certified. Number 11, true or false? Any respirator will fit correctly if you tighten the straps enough. False. Straps should not be over-tightened. If a good fit cannot be obtained, a different brand or size of respirator must be used. True or false? Number 12, beards, hair, and glasses can interfere with a good facepiece seal. That's true. 13, true or false? Fit tests must be performed by a physician. That's false. Fit tests can be performed by a qualified employee or supervisor. Fit checks can be performed by trained users. Number 14, true or false? Respirators should be inspected before and after each use. That's true. Number 15, true or false? The company's safety director is responsible for inspecting your respirator. That's false. Number 16, solvents should never be used to clean plastic or rubber parts of a respirator. That's true. True or false? Respirators should be stored away from sunlight, heat, extreme cold, excessive moisture, or damaging chemicals. That's true. True or false? Number 18, scubas for emergency use should be stored inside the danger area. That's false. Scubas for emergency use should be stored outside the danger area.